This is my last ever Crystal Crawford show. I'm going to tell you at the very end what's happening next, but let's get into the 10 lessons Access Consciousness Facilitation taught me about business. Welcome to the Crystal Crawford Show. I'm Crystal Crawford, and I invite you to a deep exploration of the tools of Access Consciousness and a totally different way of being. So I am going to be moving on and moving forward into my life to move into a career of business consciousness, growth, expansion, facilitator, coach. It's so new. I'm still developing what I'm called. But essentially, I'm just moving forward into doing the work that I've kind of done for the last 10 years, just more specifically. I'm not technically recertifying as an Access Consciousness Facilitator. And I had a person on a call today express some sadness about that she would miss me as a facilitator. And it struck me in a couple of ways. One, I hear you. But there was this other thing that emerged, which is where this topic came out from, which is that once you're a facilitator of consciousness, you can no longer return to anything else. Once a facilitator of consciousness, always a facilitator of consciousness. And so I thought I would celebrate with you this big change in my life and in the business and in what my content will be like moving forward with a listicle of 10 things, because the Access Consciousness will always be the body of work that I am most deeply informed by. It will always be a part of my being. It will always be the set of tools that I am giving credit to and sharing and talking about, because it's woven into who I am. So let's dive into what I made a list here of the 10 lessons that Access Consciousness Facilitation taught me about business. And you can apply this to anything you're creating, anything in your life. The first big lesson is that every single thing is changeable. It does not matter what you're creating or where you're at or what you have sticking you or where you're stuck. If you have something going on, it's changeable. And that's probably the biggest gift that I've gotten from Access Consciousness as a whole, is like knowing that it doesn't matter where you come from. I didn't know this was going to happen. Where you come from, what you came from, what's happening, what kind of black hole you were in when you found these tools, or you decided you had a dream and you went after it. Everything can change. Okay, this is not expected. My gratitude for these tools knows no end. And you might wonder, why would a person who's so grateful that they burst into tears be not facilitating anymore? And I can't tell you why. And this would actually be one of the lessons, another great lesson that I got from Access Consciousness, that if you listen to the energy, you'll be the smartest person in the room. All I'm doing is listening to the energy. One of the most brave, or one of the choices or things that takes the most courage and bravery to choose when it comes to living and creating your life, is to choose the things that don't make sense even to you. And for the last year, I've been trying to make recertifying make sense to me. And there are different people that have different opinions about why I'm not. But what I can tell you really truly is that I'm not because I'm not. Because to recertify and continuing to look at that choice was just heavy. So I should have written that as like thing number one that I learned as an Access Consciousness Facilitator. I learned to follow what's light, what's creating greater possibilities. And it's a constant learning thing to follow what's light. I wouldn't say I'm perfect at it. I definitely have my tendencies to go to lots of conclusions, but I follow the energy to the best of my ability. And one of the indicators of heading in a direction that is just not the way for you anymore is when you keep trying to go that direction and it just gets harder and heavier and you have more conflict about it. For 10 full years, recertifying and being a facilitator was the lightest thing I could choose, traveling around to all the classes. And it simply changed. And I can't tell you why it changed. To tell you why, I'd have to make up a story. So I'm not going to do that. So the second biggest lesson I got was to listen to the energy. If you teach yourself to listen to energy in business, you will be the smartest person in the room. You will be the smartest person in your company. The challenging thing about listening to the energy is, number one, teaching yourself to listen to the energy. And number two, trusting yourself to take action on listening to the energy and not needing anybody else's validation for your choices when you do listen to the energy. So that's the kind of stuff that I work with my clients on. Energy in business is a huge, huge perk intelligence. It's the upgraded intelligence. But the third lesson that Access Consciousness Facilitation taught me about business is that you can trust yourself. Listening to the energy is an upgraded intelligence. It takes courage, but you can trust yourself. Now, what's interesting about creators, and if you're an entrepreneur, you're generally a creator. You're what Access Consciousness would call a humanoid. Basically, there's kind of two kinds of beings. You've got humans, and humans judge other people, and humanoids judge themselves. And humanoids also tend to be the artists, and most entrepreneurs I know are some form of artist. I didn't originally consider myself an artist, but I totally am. I can create class ideas and offers and headlines and show titles, like just constantly. So I'm a creator. And creative people typically judge themselves, and they don't trust themselves, because somewhere inside of us was embedded this idea that if we were the choosers, if we were the leaders of our life, that we would destroy the world. And it's not true. It's not true. You are the creator of a new world. And so the third thing I learned is that you can trust yourself. You can trust your choices. You can trust your sense of things. And sense of things is different than intuition. Intuition is something like you have, like a handbag. Awareness is something you are. You are aware. You are aware. And Access Consciousness is one of the best bodies of tools and works and set of classes to teach yourself how your awareness works. And this is one of the things I work on with people as well. Had a conversation with somebody the other day who had never taken any Access Consciousness, and we just talked about one tool, which is what's light for you is true for you and what's heavy isn't. And that was this revolutionary thing that he was able to then implement right away and start making some different choices in his business. So sometimes it doesn't seem like the tools of Access Consciousness or consciousness in general are relevant to business, but there is no greater set of tools for business. So the fourth thing that I learned about business is that you can use the 10 keys to total freedom to change, move, activate, stimulate anything. The 10 keys to total freedom is an Access Consciousness book. And the biggest thing about being in business or being a creator or being an entrepreneur is that you are the source of the idea. And so if you are destroying yourself on the inside or doubting yourself all the time or in, all the different things that go on, right? You're afraid, worried, stressed. I mean, I'm about to launch into this big new outreach protocol. Where did that word come from? But I'm about to really put my head into and put my being into reaching out and meeting new people. And so I have the 10 keys to total freedom at my fingertips, for example, if I want to procrastinate that day, or if I don't really want to do the thing, or if I'm afraid. These keys, these tools that I've learned have taught me things, right? Number one, I actually should have put living beyond distraction here, the 10 keys to total freedom and living beyond distraction. I know that fear is a distraction now. So if I feel fear coming up around something new, then I can know that it's a distraction, and I know right underneath it is potency. That's the gift of consciousness, knowing what things actually are. So I don't have to then be worried about fear coming up or stopping me, or, fear is an indicator you're heading into danger is a lie. That's not. And so the tools of consciousness taught me that what's true, what's not true, how to distinguish what's true and what's not true just based on the sense of something. And that you can use these tools to create, shift, activate, change anything. So I'm not without the tools, not being certified. I am I am empowered. I have learned. I have the tools. So go pick up this book and start teaching yourself what's really true so that you can function different and not be stopped by all the typical things in business. The fifth lesson that Access Consciousness Facilitation taught me about business is that inclusion is the most powerful, overlooked tool. Inclusion. Now, for those of you guys that haven't seen it yet, down here there's a link for my training that I did on the pragmatic method to 10x growth. And the pragmatic method is something I invented that's got 3 pillars to it. And one of them is brutal honesty with yourself that I call awareness. The second pillar is inclusion, and the third pillar is outreach. So if you basically live by these 3 pillars and you ask yourself these questions and you get to work with some of the actions needed, you will grow your business. You'll 10 times it. Now, inclusion is the second pillar. Inclusion is where everything's included, including you, including your body, including what you want to have as your life. You're included. One of the things that stimulated this big change is that I started actually including me. I started including how I really wanted to do business, what I really wanted to have. For example, I'm so excited in this next year to put down some local roots. So Andres and I are now living in London, Ontario again. His daughter's here. In the next 3 weeks, we're going to move into a brand new apartment, get a lease. It's beautiful. It's right by a community center that has an indoor walking track and a pool and a library. And I can't even tell you how excited I am. And there's a lobby downstairs. How excited I am to grab my zero gravity chair, throw up a little tent sign about bars, and go and meet people and talk to people. I mean, amongst other things, walking and going to the pool. But to put down some local roots, actually work at my friend's salon every Saturday and introduce people to bars and just meet people. I have been on the road traveling with Access Consciousness classes for the last 7 years. And whatever changed in my life this year made me want something different. And I couldn't have even predicted that would create not re-certifying as a choice that would create more. It's so easy to go into conclusions, right? And this is conclusion and inclusion are 2 different things. But when I got honest with myself and I really looked at what I wanted my life to be like, I'm like, I want to put down some roots. I want to work with creators. I have loved working with entrepreneurs for the entire time I've been a facilitator. All of you guys know that my business programs and all the things that I put out around business have always done the best. They've been the thing that I enjoy the most. So I'm going all in on me, all in on the way I want to live, on what I want to have as a physical reality, as a living reality. So inclusion is the most powerful overlooked tool, because most of the time as entrepreneurs and creators, we're trying to get it right. You can't. You can only include what you want, include what you want to have as your life, include what you want to create as a company. This was the other thing that really started changing things for me. I started including that I wanted to create a business that could be in the future a sellable asset. I'm 5 to 10 years away from that, I think. But who cares? So if I was going to create for myself a business rather than an ongoing hustle, what would I change about the business? So that started this whole process. So inclusion is a powerful tool because it will change everything. It will create a totally different set of possibilities. But then here's the 6th thing that I learned that I think is just ridiculously, all of these should be number 1 as far as I'm concerned. Choice trumps clearing. Choice is the most powerful tool. So I would say the 2 most powerful tools are choice and inclusion and question. Can I ever just stick to 1 or 2 or 3? Choice trumps clearing, okay? Now, for those of you guys that don't know Access Consciousness and have no idea what I mean by clearing, if you start to get into those tools, and I highly recommend them, you will be introduced to the clearing statement, and it goes right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, all 9 shorts, boys, povids, ambience. You can literally clear out charged energies, which is what we as facilitators do. You can have a session with us and we will clear things for you, with you, ask you questions, bring up energies. It just makes things easier. And if you want an Access Consciousness facilitation session with me, just request it. I will never not be a facilitator. Facilitation just means to render things easy. I will always be facilitating consciousness in business because it works. Because when you do anything but consciousness, when you don't do just choice and creation, and you try to get it right, and you try to not to win and to not lose, you have a harder time. So I'm never going to do that. We're always going to be facilitating more space, more possibility, more consciousness. That's the upgraded intelligence. So if you want an Access Consciousness facilitation session, just ask me. Of course. But choice is always going to trump clearing, right? A lot of people with Access Consciousness tools use the clearing tools because they think those are superior. If I clear myself enough of the reasons I'm not doing things, then I'll be unstuck, and all of a sudden, all these things that I magically wish I would just do would happen. Or I'll just wake up one day and I'll just want to change my life, or I'll just want to go, do some outreach and connect with 100 people every day. No, fuck no, that shit's uncomfortable, right? Like, business is uncomfortable. If you want to grow, you got to get uncomfortable. You got to learn things that you've never learned before. You got to become a creature of discomfort, according to Hidden Potential by Adam Grant, I believe. That's what it is. That's what it is. If you want your business to grow, you got to be willing to get uncomfortable. So choice trumps clearing, right? The choice for outreach, for example, to reach out to new people, trumps sitting around clearing yourself of all the different things that you think would change this unwillingness in your world. Now, that's not to say to not use the clearings of Access Consciousness. If you have not yet done that, go to clearingwithcrystal.com and pick yourself up a clearing loop. I'm just saying that it's not the ultimate tool. Choice is your ultimate tool. So a great question could be, what choices do I have today that I've been not yet chosen that I could choose? What can I choose? What can I choose? What can I choose? Another thing that I work on with my clients. Because here's the thing, we get ourselves paralyzed in no choice, most of us. I feel like I don't have choice because how many times does that come out of your mouth in different ways? Right? I can't do this because I wish I could, but all of those things are no choice universe. So if you can get access to a choice universe, all of a sudden the stickiness goes away. Yesterday, example, I was sitting with myself and I'd been looping in this one thing. I can't even remember the specifics, but I sat down with myself, and this was one of the things that Access Consciousness Facilitation taught me, is that when you're looping or when you're stuck in something, there's a lie. So I sat down with myself and I was looping, and I sat there right here actually, and I went, what's the lie? And instantly it came to me. Instantly I knew, it's this. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. And all the stuckness, all the swimming around in a cesspool just left immediately. So brilliant. Like, how helpful would that be? Number 7 thing I learned that facilitation taught me about business is that boldness, brutal honesty, and reckless choosing all pay off. I'm going to leave this right here. I came into Access Consciousness tools a moral mess. I was guided for most of my life around keeping the image and getting it right. I grew up very religious and very abused. And so I had, of course, self-perpetuated that. I found Access Consciousness when I was 37 and separated for the second time. So I had to learn a lot of this stuff. And this is contributing more than I can tell you in business right now, because to make the change that I'm making right now, to really go all in on my business facilitation and coaching business, I have had to be brutally honest with myself. Now, I had to be brutally honest with a lot of different things. Like, what would I really like to do if I could do anything? If I could craft my life any way I wanted to, what would it be? This was confronting because it didn't include the things that I'd been doing so far. And I loved those things. I think those things are valuable, the things I was doing before. I wasn't even doing bad things. I was changing people's lives with those things. So it didn't make any sense why I wouldn't want to do those things anymore. But that was where brutal honesty came in, right? I was like, well, what if you just allowed yourself to have what you want? You can have your life any way you want. What would it be? Well, that's where boldness and reckless choosing come in. These all pay off, because the reason I say reckless choosing is that then when you've been honest with yourself and you know what you want, then you got to be willing to just go after it like a dog like a crazed pup with a new toy. And you got to be willing to be bold and just choose it. And this choice to not recertify and to move forward and go all in on me has required a lot of courage and a lot of boldness, and boldness that honestly I haven't felt like I've had. Like, it's not like I'm drawing on some Viking nature. I don't even know. Like, there's been many days I'm choosing this and I'm shaking in my boots. But that's boldness. Boldness isn't the lack of fear. It's like the feeling the fear and doing it anyway. I just know that I know that I know that it's time to make a new choice. And I don't have, that's it. So that's boldness. And reckless choosing is like, fuck it, I'm going to choose my way forward, and I'm going to find the fastest and the easiest way to get in front of people, including you. And we're going to do this thing. Do you know how this is going to work? Nope, no idea. Do you know when it's going to work? Nope. But I know, here's what I know. This is another something Access Consciousness Facilitation taught me, that I can trust myself. And I know that I know that I know that I create. Now, this is priceless, because I take this knowing now everywhere I go, anywhere I go, whatever I do for work. And that's something you could know. Do you have that much belief in you? Andre sat with me the other day, and I forget exactly the words he used, but he essentially asked me, how much do you believe in you? And I just said 150%. And this is coming after that evening. I had burst into tears, because this is intense right now, changing everything, moving forward in a very direct way is been really intense for me. It's been a lot like previous choices where I was leaving whole communities of people, except it's just in my head. It's like just in my head. But when he asked me that, I knew 150%. I've got me. Do I know how that's going to work or when? No, but I've got me. So boldness and reckless choosing and brutal honesty always pay off. The 8th lesson is you will always feel wrong. You will always feel wrong, and that's okay. You're always going to feel wrong, no matter what you choose, and it's okay. This is huge. I can't tell you, in the 10 years that I was an official Access Consciousness Facilitator, just keep in mind, like, I'm always going to facilitate consciousness, okay? Let's not kid ourselves. In those 10 years, I cannot tell you how many miracles that I created in different classes and came out of that class feeling like I didn't say anything, or it was the worst class ever, or what did I even say, or was that even good? And, however many months or days or years later, somebody would come back to me and go, you completely changed my life in that class. Completely. You are always going to feel wrong for what you're choosing. And that's okay. This choice has taken, like I said, a lot of courage and a lot of boldness. Most of my audience, my followers, maybe you watching, came to me via Access Consciousness. To move on from that feels like leaving the nutritive source, except you can't leave consciousness. Consciousness is in every molecule. So in a sense, it's leaving a shore. In another sense, you can't possibly leave what you are. And so you're always going to feel wrong. You're always going to feel wrong for what you're choosing. And it's okay. Just keep choosing anyway. Number 9 lesson that I learned from Access Consciousness Facilitation, being a facilitator is that being uncomfortable is a sign of great things ahead. I have never moved into a big life choice and known how I was going to do it. I've only ever chosen big life things and known that I had to do it just because I had to. And every time I've made that leap, it's been terrifying. And right on the other side of it, the most intensely rewarding choice of my life so far. And so I learned I can trust myself. Being uncomfortable is a sign of great things ahead. Just know that if you are intensely uncomfortable, that great things are emerging. They're on their way. And if you aren't uncomfortable, what would it take to choose it and stimulate great things being on their way? And because I'm limiting myself to a list of 10 things and not because this is the last one, if you think you're wrong, you're not. You're probably being brilliant. Choosing into this new phase of my life has activated a lot of familiar fears and insecurities. And because I've been so back and forth about it and all over the map, and also Facebook algorithms have changed, and because there's been this convergence of things, I also haven't gotten response to a lot of the things that I normally would have. So there's been a vacuum of affirmation, substantiation, validation, which honestly is great. Choice from choosing things because you're validated for them is not your most powerful position. Choosing things because you're choosing them is your most powerful position. And, if you think you're wrong, you're not. You're actually being brilliant. Most of the time when you think you're wrong, that's when you are creating the greatest things. You're creating the miracles. You're totally changing futures. What would it take to recognize your choices as brilliant things? I'll wrap up with this. The coolest thing about choice versus decisions is that if you can choose to not recertify and then choose again and recertify and choose to not recertify and choose to recertify, it doesn't have any significance. If you have to make a decision for the rest of your life and you can never choose anything else again, then it's got to be significant, and you've got to weigh the pros and cons, and you have to get it right. Choice is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself, where you're like, well, in this 10 seconds, I'm not recertifying. I'm going all in on this. Cool. I wonder what that'll create. All I know right now is that choice adds a bunch of energy. I feel invigorated, alive, like on fire, like thrilled, terrified. All the great things when you've got the bungee cord strapped to your ankles and you're about to leap off the cliff. Awesome. I haven't had that sensation in my life in a while. What does that mean? I have no idea what that means, but here's what I know. I'm able, I'm capable, I'm powerful, I'm aware, I can, and I will. And those are the things you need to know about you. So if you need me in your world to find you, your roots, your center, your abilities, your choices, then I'm here. And you can go here to get this training to start everything off. How does it get better than this? That's an Access Consciousness gift to my life. If you always ask how it gets better, then the universe will conspire to show you how it gets better. How does it get better than this? What else is truly possible that we haven't considered? What are the infinite possibilities here? What are the infinite possibilities for everything showing up greater than we could possibly imagine? Thank you for being a part of this last phase, and you're invited to join me in the next one. I'll see you in the next conversation.